want to get to some of the Tim Walz, stolen valor, the whole current political scene. But if I've done my homework right, were you just starting out getting a political science degree at Washington University in St. Louis in the summer when Nixon resigned? And what were you doing? And how did it strike you then? And how does it strike you now?
As usual, you've done your homework, Mark. Yeah, I was about ready to go to college, and I knew I couldn't claim I was still in my bassinet as a 2-year old. No, I'm old enough to have actually been there and to have watched it. And when I know you're going to ask what I think about it now. Nixon was a fighter, and the fact that I think he would have loved to fight it out to the end. But I honestly think A, he knew what the result was going to be, and B, he also was a patriot, and he knew that he wasn't going to win, and it was going to hurt the country, so he quit. I think it's basically what he said at the time.
If you take a look at the crimes of Watergate, the actual crimes of the break-in, and those of which Nixon is admittedly guilty, I think your take is exactly right. But is it a little too glib for me to say, compared to some of the things I've seen since, some of the things I've seen presidents do since, maybe even recently, smearing and prosecuting for political reasons in a banana republic fashion their political opponents, the degree of treachery that we've seen from presidents since. I don't want to say Watergate seems like small potatoes, but it's not like the worst thing a president ever did.
Well, it certainly was a more innocent time, so we weren't used to stories like this all the time. And I do think it's true that the cover-up probably hurt him more than the crime. And, we see this lesson repeated over and over again. I don't want to segue out of this subject if you're not prepared to, but that was my response to what's happening now with Waltz. I mean,
Let's do.
and his record in the military.
Let's
I mean,
absolutely do,
his
because
problem is not,
go ahead.
yeah, it's not so much this first round. The problem is the odds are very high that eventually he's going to have to sit for an interview, or Harris is, and the odds are high that, notwithstanding how sycophantic the press has been, somebody is going to ask the question: did you leave the National Guard to avoid deploying overseas? And at that point, if he says no and it's not true, we could have a swift boat type situation, because within this community of veterans, this is a question of honor. Okay, so I don't know what they're going to say. I mean, I don't know what the truth is. I'm like Noah Rothman. I mean, but I would say this: whatever the truth is, he better say it, because these veterans are not going to stand for somebody prevaricating on a question of honor.
And it seems like the records are going to be easier to attach to for this than they were in the Swift boat controversy of 20 years ago with John Kerry, because you had the Swift boat Veterans for Truth. Jerome Corsi and others wrote an entire book of it, Unfit for Command. But all out of that still remain kind of murky, the circumstances under which John Kerry earned those medals. This seems like a matter of the calendar. In what order did these things happen? He hears that I might have to actually go to a war zone, chooses to come out of the National Guard. Which happened first? These seem like questions we'll actually get the answers to.
Right. And again, politically, and I don't address the merits because, like so many others, I didn't serve myself. But politically, you see, that if he isn't straightforward in what he says, I mean, he can try and justify it, but he has to be straightforward in talking about the facts. Now the problem becomes that he's not telling the truth about what he did. You see what I'm saying? And now we do get round after round of this as people keep contesting the story that he offers. So that's what I'm going to be interested to see, is when they actually sit for an interview, which they're certainly going to have to do. I think they're just trying to hold off till they get the convention done. But
Well, that's what I was going to say.
at that
30
point, things are
seconds.
going
Do
to
you
open up.
think? Do you think in 30 seconds are they going to be just clammed up until they get to the convention, or will the pressure mount where they'll actually have to answer these questions in the next couple of days?
It's a good question. Assuming they're acting rationally, it has to be that they have a short-term plan to get through the convention, because there is no way they're going to be able to, not just this, the question about their records, the riots in Minneapolis, how liberal she was in the Senate, all these questions are going to get asked. And maybe they can get through the convention. We'll see.